Hello, we are Team Sprayground, and today we're going to be talking to you about our focus topic, which is how Playboy became a gateway for a sexualized mainstream media.
What was mainstream media like before Playboy? Before Playboy, Flossie Esker magazine focused on how women should dress and act. Television series to magazines have created a stereotype for women. A woman's position was always to please her husband, happy life. Advertisements on TV were designed for women, showcasing new cleaning supplies, new gas stoves, irons, and more. The goal of the advertisements is to make the woman want to stay at home, showcasing them it would be easier and faster way to clean and cook. The media portrayed what a perfect woman should be. She should be tall, skinny, light skinned, polite, quiet, submissive, and dressed modestly. A woman's appearance would describe who she is as a person. Showing skin automatically meant you were a whore. You had to fit in the stereotype, or you wouldn't be accepted from your family or by a man. A woman's job is to get married, and to have a family, and to please her husband. How, when, and why did Playboy come to existence? Hefner started a magazine company with the help of his mother. Hefner published his first issue in December of 1953. His company started off selling limited copies, and the magazine quickly caught the eye of the consumer. Hefner's main consumer were men. Hefner wrote in his first publication, "If you're a man between 18 and 80, Playboy's meant for you. We want to make it clear from the start, we aren't a family magazine. If you're somebody's sister, wife, mother-in-law, and picked us up by mistake, please pass us along by the man of your life, and get back to your lady home companions." What kind of magazine did Hefner sell? What was Playboy known for? Hefner sold new magazines that were known to be recognized some as contemporary porn, meaning it was the new and popular at the current time frame. If we were to compare porn in the 50s to now, a lot has changed. Porn now is to be seen in films. The films focus on hatred towards women in sex acts to be seen as an act of degradation. The purpose is to show the man's dominance and degradation towards women, for women is to be viewed as powerless and useless objects. Porn in the 50s was more sexualizing the women without the same amount of degradation and shaming. In Playboy magazine, models would pose similarly to how fashion models would pose, seen as to be art, to be more acceptable. Magazines were a cultural trend in the society in the 50s. Magazines were a way to normalize a new trend. It was one of the reasons why Playboy was able to stand out and was more effortlessly normalized to the public. Magazines were being sold to convenience stores, grocery stores, stands, and more. The more the consumers wanted from Playboy, the more Hefner was able to expand his company. He created a logo as a bunny. His merchandise had his logo printed on it. Why the bunnies? Bunnies are known to be sexually active animals. When Hefner was describing his storyline for the magazine, he described the woman to be in the magazine as light-skinned, a light, shy, like a bunny, joking, happy girls. Hefner created a fantasy for the male audience, quiet, beautiful young women being portrayed as Hefner's labeled them as the girl next door, what every man wants and what he can get from his magazines.
The late founder of Playboy was considered a retrograde chauvinist by many, but his politics and his support for women's rights were once as radical as his sexual mores, according to Carrie Pizzulo, writer for media company Politico. For the Playboy community and its aficionados, what Hefner was proposing and instituting was a mythology of Playboy as a progressive outgrowth of the sexual revolution and a bold expression of feminism, according to television critic and writer for the LA Times, Lorraine Alley. Not everyone thought outside the bubble and was as liberal as Hefner at the time, though. The United States Post Office was one of those more conservative-thinking institutions who was amongst the first to give Hefner one of his first lawsuits, stating that he was spreading inappropriate and explicit content that alluded to an unpleasant image of the female gender. By spreading the idea of sexuality through explicit images of nude female bodies, Hefner gained popularity amongst the American people, more specifically the American male audience, because of the influence that the male gaze has over society. At the time the magazine was at its peak, the American economy was as well, raising its minimum wage to $1, therefore doubling what a magazine cost at the time, which then led to making it more affordable to the American population and a large majority of its audience who were boys averaging 11 years old. Boys who then internalized a flawed image of what an average woman really looked like. So what repercussion came from normalizing sex? Young children then create a false narrative of what sex is. Better said by Gail, porn sex is not about making love. It's more than often connected and engraved in these kids' minds with hate, disgust, anger, and loathing. Sex is then illustrated on the amount of power a man has to degrade a woman. So although Playboy has done some good in opening doors people never thought of even touching before, it has also opened a door which was holding back a beast. The beast being the ideas, cultures, false narratives, and aggression which we are instilling upon a young generation who is going to subconsciously grow up with them and shape them before they even get a chance to decide and shape who they are. Dr. Tanya Shiro, a lecturer in gender history and author, also said, quote, "Scholars have linked the ubiquity of sexual imagery and discussion with what they call the politicization of sex from the 1960s, that is to say, the articulation of rights-based claims regarding sexual identity and sexual practice. This was evidently particular in the emergence of radical movement for gay and lesbian liberation. The disconnection of sexual pleasure from procreation and the acceptability of this separation were key underpinnings of the new permissiveness. The breaking of taboos also included mainstreaming of pornography, including the advent of titles such as Penthouse and Mayfair, founded in 1965 and 1966. End quote. So the radicalization of normalizing the sexual movement and the point of view of explicit image had some deeper marks on how we view sex and women. Some bad, some good. The fact of the matter, though, is that it's not up to me to decide which side is right, but to shed light on the topic.
How did Playboy become the gateway for sexualizing mainstream media? Although Playboy never invented pornography, it did bring it out of the shadows, which in response had made it very well established and part of social mainstream culture. Before Playboy, pornographic magazines were not as popular. They were not as easy for these magazines to be easily accessed or obtained. After Hefner published Playboy, it became a big gateway to success. As Playboy CEO Scott Flander puts it, Hefner battled to make pornography mainstream has been fought and won, in some ways a job done too well. This late uprising in the movie scenes that we see. Since this, mainstream media has grown more accustomed to sexual scenes. From Last Tango from Paris from 1972, Risky Business from 1983, 9.5 Weeks from 1986, and Henry and June from 1990, which all included some type of explicit sexual scenes. During this time, we all saw Hefner, who was also introduced to cable television, DVDs, and internet by this time. Flint also operated casinos, websites that showed pornography, and profited from the Hollywood studios which produced pornographic films. Playboy brought pornography out of the shadows, but in a way made it mainstream through media. Throughout the time, it has been a big development. Nowadays, you don't need a magazine. Everything is online. Like Joe Carter said, things which attempt to keep hidden are no longer hidden. Because of technology, it is all out there now. Hefner contributed to the start of pornographic magazines and to make bearable and which paved into making mainstream media. So this is how Playboy became the gateway for sexualizing mainstream media. And here are our sources.